You guys want to know how stupid LA is? Okay, this right here is the famous Four Ladies of Hollywood statue, okay? It's got four famous iconic actresses from the golden era. A long time ago, like a few months ago, somebody crashed into this thing and destroyed one of the statues that holds up this pavilion, okay? It was Anna May Wong, the Asian actress. And instead of fixing the statue, they just made the pole longer on her head.
No.
Jesus.
This is how LA does things. You guys want to know how stupid
messed up is that?
Emotional damage.
Dirterotic.com.
Where do we want to start? Let's start with Hollywood, shall we? Box office wise, over the last month, it's been pretty good. They've got the Mario movie making a lot of money, and Project Hail Mary is the kind of movie you want to make money. It's just really good and fun. Before that, we had 2 months of nothing. So until Project Hail Mary came out, there was no tentpole that came out of any significance that made over $200 million worldwide at the box office. And what carried it was Avatar, basically, carried the first 2 months in the first quarter. But before Avatar came out, there was a huge 2 month span. I want to say it was September, October, Chris, where nothing came out. There was a couple good movies, but nothing like made enough money to carry theaters. And now we're starting to hear theaters, AMC, their stock got hit. And you're going to start hearing theaters closing. Like these buildings are too big. They take up too much space. They're too expensive to maintain. Freaking property tax on them is probably insane alone. And Hollywood is not providing anything. So I'm sure you paid attention to CinemaCon, Jim, a little bit.
Yeah.
Tom, oh God, why am I blanking on his name? The Sony CEO, Tom Rothman, came out and said, hey, theaters, stop showing 30 minutes of ads before your movies, which I'm down with that. But the problem is that's the guy who greenlit Madam Web and Morbius. So like make better movies for these theaters. You need to make more of them. I don't know if that's possible now because of the decline in Hollywood and just because there's runaway production now. They've also greatly reduced the production. I don't know the exact percentage, but it's 30, 40%. Jim, you said there was a malaise over the town. It might not just be political. What's the feeling? Okay, so you are a writer, you're a producer, so you do indie projects. You're on the ground level, so you see kind of like all of the underbelly, and you also know kind of all the shit you have to do to trick. You have to do guerrilla shooting, all kinds of crazy stuff to save money. How's it looking in LA overall right now?
Really, really dire. I think, Wall Street Journal just put that article out that said there's 42,000 less jobs in the last 2 years. And I think that might be an understatement. I mean, listen, the evergreen business of the film industry that was in LA and California, they just let it die, basically. Well, all these other states last decade or so, Alabama, Kentucky, Georgia, put all these tax incentives in that are, so much better. That's why no one shoots in LA. There's a multitude of problems. Without getting in the weeds too much, the biggest problem of all is the California tax incentive is idiotic. Let me just tell you, this is why I hate California. Sorry, I was born here, but I hate it right now. Is this kind of stuff. Is that there was I think it was $350 million was in the system, right, for films. But you can't apply above the line. You have to do a jobs formula. You have to wait. It's all these things that other states don't do. So what does the legislature in California do? Put twice as much money into a failed system without changing the parameters, without making it, including above the line, like every other state, without getting rid of that dumb job formula, without doing all the things that make it competitive. Their only solution is more money without fixing the problem that was causing it in the first place. So that's the big problem. And then also too, it's just, other states are easy to shoot in. California, if you have a question about the tax incentive or anything, you can't get anybody on the phone. If I called Mississippi Film Commission today, right now, somebody'd be on the phone in 2 hours to answer my questions. They'd be like, here's what you do.
People are so nice here. They're not jaded about film industry like in LA. So it's absolutely great.
They're super helpful. I've done a movie in Mississippi, 2 in Alabama, 1 in Kentucky, 1 in Michigan, and no one wants to shoot in LA. It's all just red tape, expensive as hell for everything. You've got union costs. It's just laborious. It's like, why bother? So it's bad, Gary. It's bad. It's bad for
So-
California. For sure.
Yeah, like I'll go in on the unions, but the thing is, either way, with the unions and the state, you have two giant things you have to go through that are pain in the ass. Right now, the bureaucracy of California probably would be worse because they are so unhelpful. But they've had forever to fix this, guys. The Democratic leadership is a super majority in Los Angeles and California, has been in power, absolute power for what, 30 years? Since Arnold left, 20 years, and they had power when he was there too. They could have fixed this problem overnight easily. This shouldn't have been a problem. Runaway production has been going on for what, 2 decades? Like seriously, probably further than that. How can you not have better tax incentives than the UK, which is like, have you seen how much houses cost in the UK? You see how expensive it is in the UK? And they have a better tax incentives than California. I don't know how that happens other than just pure corruption and ineptitude.
Well, there's one other thing too that actually that's why a lot of things go to UK and Europe is that they have socialized medicine. So, and whether you're for it or against it, that's just the playing field. If I shoot a $2 million movie in LA and I spend $400,000 on crew, below the line crew, I have to pay 30% on top of that for their pension and health. If I go to Ireland to do the same thing, it's 6%. So you do the math, do you want 30% of a certain amount of your movie going to like $150,000 not going on screen, going to pension health payments, or a small amount? So that's why Ireland, UK.
And what happened to California socialized medicine? They were going to like do their own. I was living there when Obamacare was coming up. They're like, oh, we're going to do our own thing anyway. What happened to that?
Yeah.
Any idea? Like, it went the same place as the high speed rail. I forgot. Yeah, it just didn't happen. What's that article you got there, X-Ray?
It's actually the Wall Street Journal one that I think you were referring to, Jim.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Give me a moment. I have to balance out Jim's Dodger hat.
Oh,
what? Padres?
There we go.
Now?
All right. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
oh damn.
I needed a haircut, so I'm like, all right.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. All right. See how Hollywood's job market is collapsing. Studios are making fewer movies and shows than they did just a few years ago. The ones they do make are increasingly being shot outside the U.S. Now, Chris, my friend, and Jim, this is something we've been talking about, I don't know, for 5 years. Like this was going to happen. It was inevitable. And through the mistakes of going on strike at the worst time possible, COVID, which I am of the belief Hollywood would have recovered from COVID by now if they hadn't gone on strike, because they were starting to get things rolling again and they shut down again. And you break the habit twice for the audience to stop going to movies while you're trying to build up streaming. You're cooked, as the kids say. By the way, Gen Z still thinks they made that saying, and it's 100 years old. It's literally 100 years old. But here is a graph that looks alarming. That looks alarming. Change in employment from January of 2015, by the way. Look at that big dip.
COVID.
COVID right there. The thing is, though, you guys were allowed to work through COVID. You were, Hollywood was considered essential. The only problem with that is the paying customer wasn't allowed to go see the product. So you were allowed to make the product, but the paying customer in California in particular was not allowed to go to the gym or, Chris, when do you remember the mask mandate ending?
Oh, it ended for about 2 weeks when they rolled out the vaccine. Then they brought it back. California held out longer than any other state with the mask mandates. However, certain cities like Pasadena did not enforce it. Orange County didn't care. If you went to other parts of California, it was like nothing was going on. And people, knew how ridiculous our governor is.
I can tell you when it was, because it was 2 weeks before I left for Texas, Chris. It was February of 2022. So the mask mandate was on and off, but it was mostly on for almost 2 years. 2 years. And not most businesses, especially in North County, San Diego, were like, nah, you don't have to do it. It's fine. You don't even have to do the face diaper. You don't have to have it on. So based businesses there. But it wiped out small business. And it really de-incentivized people to go to the movies, except, of course, when Spider-Man comes out. Then it makes $2 billion. But yeah, so we have writers and actor strikes down there. So you see that dip. And then look after that. Oh my.
Yeah. Well, Gary, you know why that big explosion there from like 21 to 23 is? That's just because everybody was competing against Netflix. Yep. That's all that is. They turned on the money hose, Paramount Plus. I had a friend who was really high up at Paramount Plus. They thought they were going to be able to keep up, same with Disney Plus. So they just made content. That combination of the money hose and DEI is what fueled DEI, because nobody cared about the content. It was all about market share. Everybody's just trying to catch up to Netflix. And then when Netflix pretty much won, guess what happened? Everybody stopped making things like that. So that's why you've got that explosion there. And unfortunately, most of the good screenwriters I know, none of them got a piece of that pie. That's just the horrible shows we saw, and none of them around anymore. So that's what that is. And that's why it's all contracting.
It was the perfect storm, right? Because you've talked about this. And by the way, I have to make the distinction. There's money hose and money hose. So like one's a hose of money, and then there's people who are hose for money. Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to point that out. So there was also all the requirements, all the DEI requirements, HR requirements, post Me Too, post Summer of Love, plus the strikes. There's only so much talent in the world. There is. You have a finite number of talented people. And when you start plucking from that finite number based on skin color, because you're fighting racism somehow by being racist and picking out white male writers who were straight, were told to pound sand for the most part. Or I could work with you. Oh, God, I wish I could say who this was. I could work with you. Chris, you were at this dinner. You know who I talked. You know who I talked to. He's like, yeah, I had this big old project, but then they gave me like a chart of diverse writers I could choose from because I couldn't have my writing partner because he was white and straight. So I just said no. And when you hear it from somebody like you or other people, it gets real. It's like, wow, they really were doing this. It's not just a bunch of YouTubers saying they really were doing this, and that affects everything. Where have a lot of these older writers gone? Are they writing books now, or like what happened to them?
Yeah, well, they're all trying to do something. The writers, if you're savvy and smart. Okay, let me take one step back. Here's the thing, and Chris has heard me probably talk about this. When you work in features, whether it's studio level or indie features, you kind of are starting your own business each time, and you have to start all over again. You write a script, or you talk to your agent manager, or you pitch it to a studio, you write it. Maybe you stay on it, somebody else comes on it. So it's like starting a little business every time. Then when you do the next one, yet when you're in TV, you're constantly waiting for the corporation to hire you. So I always joke that TV writers are institutionalized, almost like Brooks from Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
They are waiting for jobs. They're waiting. They don't know how to take action. And I've talked to some really big showrunners and studio execs that are out of work, and they all ask me, they're like, how do you put a movie together? I'm like, it's easy. You do this, and that, and they don't understand it. And there's one other thing about TV writers. They don't like to work for free. Feature writers, even at studio level, have to work for free. They have to do many rewrites. You're building your own business. You have sweat equity. TV, they don't do that. They hire you. You're right. So it's a totally different mentality. And I think a lot of them are basically fucked because they can't get out of that mentality. It's too late for them. You got to go make your own way. There's still, even though the entertainment business is cratering, there's new opportunities, but they can't find those. So they're really, get your Social Security and go live on a beach or something. They're dead.
Yeah. I like the term institutionalized. That's really good. That does describe it. Even in the lower dregs that I worked in just post, basically, we had to work for free a bunch. We had to clock out and stay in the building. Nobody told us to do that, but we have a deadline. We had to meet it by a certain time, and it wasn't realistic within the hours of my job, which was a 12-hour shift, by the way. So we'd be there for 14, 16 hours and working 4 hours for free. And people hated that. They like, no, you should leave. I'm like, no, I want to get my job done so I don't have to do twice as much tomorrow. Get it done today, But people would get mad. And I understand why, because it would set a precedent of, oh, now you got to work for free. But they absolutely expected it. The town ran on that. And the worst part was, I was hired at Technicolor to train my replacement, from day one in Bangalore, India. So I'd have to report to Bangalore, India. It was that's a whole other video.
Have you guys ever heard of producer passes on like what they've been doing for 20 years in the WGA? And what a producer pass is, let's say Lionsgate hires you to write something, right? And they pay you $100,000 and you write a script. Now there's one or two producers on there that don't work usually for Lionsgate that came along with the project, some independent producer or something. Lionsgate can't ask you to do another rewrite because they'd be breaking WGA rules and have to pay you. But the producer can ask you because they're not the one who hired you. And they just like divert the whole system. And they'll be like, well, they like this and that, but can you do that? And they've been doing that for 20 years. I think they're trying to get rid of that right now, but they'll find another way to do it. But I've probably done, as 20 something years as a screenwriter, 5 years full-time of free work, at least,
it's part of the game. You're an entrepreneur. It's an entrepreneur versus somebody who just is waiting for that corporate gig so they could have that badge and that security and the benefits. Yeah. And I just don't think the town is built that way. It never has been. I mean, the streaming thing was never going to work forever. And even Netflix, the gargantuan giant that it is now, its formula, in my opinion, is not really that sustainable. Because the thing is, the streamers found out really early, like what YouTube knows. You need content. And it doesn't really matter how good or bad it is. You need new stuff all the time to keep subscribers coming in. Now, eventually, I think quality has to matter, right? But there's enough of it. This is why YouTube's so fucking stupid. YouTube wants to be Hollywood, and all they have to sit back and rely on their creators and just kick back and kick Hollywood's ass all day long. They don't have to favor studios or stars, but they like the new CEO is kind of a star fucker. So like that's why he's such an idiot about this stuff. And yeah, I said it. It almost makes you miss Mama Susan. Almost. May she rest in peace, by the way. That to the point where Netflix, Jim, back in 2016, was thinking about having content creators come on their platform. They gave it a serious think about having, like competing against YouTube. Decided not to do it, probably wise. But yeah, you need to have content. And that's that boom we just saw. That's what it was. It was, we hope all this works and we're not really going to do much quality control. But how do they move forward? So we have Hulu combining with Disney Plus, but they still don't create enough content to reduce churn because you have to have a new show every week, pretty much. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I just skip over Hulu all the time now. It's like nothing new, nothing good. I'll glance at it just to see if there's something, and instead I'll watch Top Chef because that's more dramatic than half the shit on there.
Reality gets a well, I mean, a lot of reality shows are shit. Okay, let's be real. But then like you find some gems like Top Chef or Clarkson's Farm, which is absolutely the greatest show. So what is this? For live action scripted film and TV productions with budgets of 40 million or more. So we have a dip in 2021, it's 251. So it's almost halved.
Wow.
Almost. They lost almost 100 scripted productions. That's a lot. Rest of the world is up, a little bit. So overall, it's down. And off the top of your head, Chris, how many TV shows were produced in the height of the stream, like in 2021, we'll say?
Oh my God. I think
wasn't it over 600?
Insane number.
Yeah,
that
crazy.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you guys one other thing that I just found out, because now that the WGA did their new negotiations MBA, I can say this because we have these secret WGA meetings. There's only 10% of the people in WGA are employed right now. 10%. So there you go.
It's 90% unemployment.
Yep.
It's an unemployment union.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There's only 10% of people are working right now.
But that's the thing, though. Being a full-time writer was supposed to be a rare thing, like a super rare thing. Unions needed more members. They got more members for a while. I remember during the last strike, and this was actors, so this wasn't the writers, Jim. I'll say SAG this time out of respect for you. I usually don't call them SAG.
You can call them.
The Film Actors Guild. They were hiring extras who were not union to picket for them. And with dangling the carrot that, maybe you can get in the union. And then there were fewer jobs afterwards. It was really a dirty tactic. This new deal that they signed really quick, Jim. I mean, there was no
That's what happens when you got no negotiating power. I mean, they just, here's the thing is I called Chris, or I think I texted you after let me take one step back. So every 3 years, the WGA has a big meeting before they, start a new NBA, and they explain to all the members what's going on. And you can go, and it's literally like a 5-hour bitch session where everybody gets in front of the board. They complain about things. They talk about the issues. The board talks to you about what they want to do in the new NBA and this and that. 3 years ago, before the strike happened, I went to one, and it was mind-boggling because all anybody talked about was diversity. Diversity, 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 where all the other ones I'd been to, because I've been the Writers Guild like 16, 17 years, all the other ones I've been to were people complaining about money. That's all they complained about was money and residuals. 2018, whenever it was, 2020, money, residuals, money, residuals. This one was all about diversity, 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 diversity. That's all everybody talked about. And people complaining that they'd been on a show for like 2 little shows, and why are they not a showrunner? Usually it takes you 15 years to be a showrunner, not a year and a half. But that's just how people's mentality worked, because they were all new people who had been put in. Now, we just had another one of those meetings like 3 months ago I went to, and not a single question about diversity, not a single complaint about diversity. It was all about, how do I get a job? How do I keep my health insurance? So realities come down very, very hard on the whole operation. And people are just scrambling to survive. And it's funny how all that shit doesn't matter when you can't pay your bills.
Yeah. And the WGA came out and said, we just struck the perfect deal that we've always wanted. And like, of course, the producers are going to make it sound like that. And of course, the union's going to make it sound like that. But it was like you said, it was a deal out of necessity. Listen, the producers couldn't afford another stoppage too. And just the thought of it. And I know it feels like the big strikes were just yesterday. How time flies.
Yeah. Here's an article that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say one other thing about what happened on the strike during the strike too. I'll tell you guys this, and a lot of older senior people have been around were complaining about this. Is that there were so many people on the picket line and striking and so gung ho because they were all out of work writers. Most writers in the WGA did one job and they got in, or worked for 1 year, and you're in forever. And they haven't worked in years and years and years, so they used it as a networking thing. They'd go to the picket line every day hoping they can make friends, get jobs. And the old dogs like me and a bunch of people I know were just like, these idiots, these morons. These guys are not going to hire you because you're walking around with a sign. They're going to hire their friends again,
There is hope. Share what I just put in there, Gary, if you would. I used to be a Hollywood writer. Now I'm lugging lumber from Home Depot. It's an upgrade.
Wow.
No,
hey, it's honest work.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to fault a guy for making a living. We've all done jobs we didn't like to get to where we want to be, but this is not a rare story. This is now common. There was a story not too long ago about writers delivering DoorDash, and just doing whatever it takes to survive. And I know people who have been in the industry that just are changing careers.
Well, I mean, back in the old days, again, being just a TV writer was really rare, and they would have other jobs, and not people who wrote novels would be accountants, and they just did it in their spare time. I know a guy named John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. He was a professor at a college, I think, wrote his books out, his manuscripts out by hand at night, smoking his pipe. And then when he did type it, he typed it with 2 fingers, he had a job, kids, did all that other stuff too. So it's not a bad idea to have another career to fall back on. And honestly, if you go out and become like an auto mechanic or an electrician right now, that's good paying work. It's good paying work. It's honest work. And you'll probably be able to retire early on what you're going to get paid. And it's not necessarily going to get taken over by AI right away.
Well, by the way, Andy Weir, I learned in an interview, he did a lot of them for Project Hail Mary. He was a computer programmer who was working, and when he sold The Martian, he was still doing it.
Yeah.
He wrote it, sold it. He's very practical, that guy, so he got
that makes sense. If you read his books, they're pretty practical.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say one other thing about these kind of stories, because you're hearing them a lot, is that a lot of these people got in the Writers Guild in the last like 6-7 years because of DEI and things like that. Very easily. They didn't have to work that hard. And they thought once they were in, they're in for life. And people I know from 10, 15 years ago, they hustled so hard to get in. When they were in, they kept the hustle going. They kept busting balls. You have to keep working, grind. You know, I've done some gigs for studios. I sold a couple TV shows. I got some huge checks. You know what I did every time I got a check? I bought a pair of tennis shoes. So I felt like it did something for myself. And I put the rest in the bank, or I put in my IRA, like, because I'm like, this ain't gonna keep being like this, you know. So every time I did, got a big check, I just hold on to it because I'm like, I don't know how long this has to last, you know. So I think a lot of these young kids who got in just think, oh, I'm in, I'm open the door.
Easy.
Yeah, and it's not like that.
Jim, could you fact check something for me? Okay. Our very positive governor, Gavin Newsom, did you know? This is from the press office. Did you know California's production industry is 10 times larger than Georgia's and twice the size of New York?
I mean, they could be manipulating anything because you know what our governor's up to. You know, spending money on PR to make himself to change all the facts of the last 8 years. Well,
buying his own book too and giving it to
government. Who knows what that means? They could be using just studios lot spaces to come up with that, you know, that. And here's the other thing is like, Georgia's losing a lot of business too. New York's gaining business. New Jersey's blowing up because it's just so much easier to work there. So it's all bullshit. You know, I think, Chris, you've heard me complain about it because I've complained about a lot of things. I think I complained about Film Threat is the city councilwoman for Hollywood, Nathia Rahman.
Yes.
Guess where her husband does he's a big TV writer. Guess where his shows are all produced? New York and New Jersey. So if the city council person representing Hollywood is sleeping in the same bed with somebody who takes their productions to another state, what is that? You know,
didn't Gavin Newsom just hire a big New York firm, PR firm, to start an ad campaign for California? You can't make this shit up. The thing is, Chris, this probably is right. And it's what Jim said. You know more than me. It's probably studio space, right? And he's not, of course, he didn't mention the UK in here. He left that out. And you would probably have to have followed that up as, it's still larger, but it's also 10 times smaller than it was 20 years ago. You know, shrinkage. He was in the pool.
One other thing, too, that's really annoying about the incentive in California is because they do a jobs formula and no other state does that. So it's basically rigged for the studios to get it. And the studios, most of the time they get it, we're going to shoot here anyway. You know, like I have a friend who worked on a big TV show. I'm not going to out the actor, but the actor would show up and say, big actor, he'd be like, all right, he'd say, get me out in 3 hours. I got to go golfing. You know, and that's the only reason they shot the show in California was because he didn't want to go somewhere else. You know, and that's usually what it is. You know, and then they brag about these shows are shooting here and here. It's because they had no choice, really, you know, because that's also very appealing to actors. Get out of bed and go to work, not, you know, live somewhere else for 6 months. So, it's all bullshit. I mean, really, Gavin Newsom full of shit. I don't know. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Yeah.
And actors care so much about the below the line guys that, you know, they signed a letter, Jim. They signed a big letter against the Paramount Warner Brothers merger because they're looking out for the below the line guys. But believe me, they would sign with Paramount Warner Brothers or Mount Bros or whatever the hell it's going to get called the minute that merger goes through.
Nerderotic.com. Please subscribe.